in the King James Version, the wiles of the devil, the strategy. Wiles is a word for strategy, the strategic moves that Satan has. And one of his ways of tricking us, he tricks us into thinking that in order to serve him, we have to give up having fun, have to give up enjoying life, to make us think that church is such a bore and boredom and chore that we find no joy in serving God. He has a way of tricking us to think that all the fun days are over now that I've become a child of God. And, if I remember the good old days when I was out there having fun. But I remember Billy Joel, the songwriter, said that the good old days weren't always good. Sometimes we have a way of looking back with rose-colored glasses about how good things used to be, because the enemy has a way of trying to make us think it was what it really was not the whole time. One of the things he does, I told you, he takes a joy from serving God, a joyless Christian walk. I don't want to have a joyless Christian walk. I don't want to serve God and have no joy. I don't want to come to church and feel like I'm doing a chore. I want to come into his presence. I don't get ahead of myself, but the writer in the text this morning, he points out three particular things that I want to take note of, and that is the fact that he says he's glad. He says he's here in God's house, and he's glad he ain't there in the tent of the wicked. I told you, I'm so glad I'm here and not there. He says, you know what? God's house is a lovely house. And they ain't talking about how big the chandelier is. He's not talking about how nice the carpet is. He's saying that anywhere that's God's house is a lovely house. Because he ain't talking on the outside. He's talking about what happens in God's house. It's lovely, it's beautiful when you come into God's house and lives are turned around. It's beautiful when you come into God's house and people who are hooked on drugs get free. It's beautiful when you come into God's house and people who are dependent upon alcohol throw the bottle down and don't need it no more because they got a new kind of high. It's beautiful when you can come into God's house and see young people encouraged and given chances to do things to help them grow in life. The church is the place where young people ought to be able to mess up and get up again. Church is a place where we ought to be able to put them and let them speak publicly, because if you cannot express yourself, you will only go so far in this world. But you got to press your way out. I'm talking about when you're sick in your body. But you got to press your way out. I'm talking about when the devil has stolen your joy, but you press your way out. He says there's an effort. He said, he called something the valley of Baca. Baca means weeping in the Hebrew. The valley of Baca was a dry place. But he said that on the way here, many on their way to the temple had to go through this dry place. But he says, look at what happens when you go through some stuff and you pressing your way anyhow. He says that even when you go through the valley of Baca, God makes it like a spring. God makes it like a well. What does that mean, preacher? That means what Paul said, that this light affliction, which I'm going through, is working for me for an exceeding and eternal weight of glory. That means what I'm going through, if I don't look at the circumstances, but if I look at God, if I look at what I'm going through, if I look at the giant, I see myself as a grasshopper. But if I look at God, I see God as one who's able to do exceedingly and abundantly and above all that we may ask or even think. Let me ask you a question this morning. What you looking at? Are you looking at God, or are you looking at your situation? Are you looking at God, or are you looking at your pocketbook? Are you looking at God, or are you looking at the people that's hating you? I dare you to start looking at God, because I got some haters. But when I look at God, God says, in the presence of my haters, he prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And just so they'll know, he anoints my head with oil. Just so they'll know, he waits on me and pours my cup until my cup overflows. Just so they'll know, he will tell them, try to sneak up on him if you want. He got an entourage. Surely goodness and mercy walking behind me, goodness and mercy following me all the day of my life. So if I got to go through something to get here today, I gotta say, so glad that I'm here. Could have been dead and gone, but the Lord let me live on. So glad. If I have to go by myself, the doorkeeper, the sons of Korah, were warriors. They were with David. When David had to run from Saul, they were part of the fighting army. You see, a doorkeeper really was one. They said, I'm on the Lord's army. I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. And my weapon is truth, is love, is understanding. Korah's men were men that were warriors, but also they were men that were poets. The sons of Korah are the ones that wrote this passage in the psalm. David didn't write them all, but it was the doorkeepers that said, I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. It was the doorkeepers that wrote for Psalm 46 that said that God is my refuge and my strength, a very present help in the time of trouble. We got to understand that a doorkeeper was not a lowly place. They were part of the Levites, and the Levites were the one. When Moses came down the mountain and asked the question, where do you stand? It was the sons of Korah and the Levites that said, I'm on the Lord's side. So when they stand at the door, it's not a lowly place. They are declaring by their actions that they are on the Lord's side.